Like some of the projects.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Yeah, it's pretty strong. Yeah, this is very robust. We made it to be strong and to last for weeks.
I know.
Love your cigarette. Yeah.
You go like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's not about touch. It's about
Yes, David.
So you made your movie.
Media arts and sciences. Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing a PhD.
I'm drawing. I don't know if I have my cards.
Okay.
But when I contact you, then you.
Sure, I'll remember you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what the project is that you're working on.
Sure. My name is David Merrill, and I'm a PhD student at the MIT Media Lab. And I've been working on this project called The Sound of Touch with my collaborator Raffle. And the idea behind The Sound of Touch is that each of us has a lifetime of experience in the physical world, knowing how things sound, physical objects, physical materials, knowing how they resonate, what it'll sound like if you scratch them, strike them with your hand, any kind of manipulation that you can do with your body. People have a lot of intuition about this. And the problem that we noticed is that most ways that we have today to manipulate digital sounds don't take good advantage of all this intuition that we have. If I'm using a graphical waveform editor on a computer, I'm using my mouse, my keyboard, I'm looking at a version of the sound on the screen as a set of squiggly lines, and that's a very abstract mathematical way to think about sound. And so what Hayes and I wanted to do was to create a system that would let my intuition and my experience about how physical things make sound, let that inform my ability to sculpt a digital sound. So the Sound of Touch is really a tool and a texture kit that allows you to sculpt digital sounds based on what you know about these textures, and you can just explore these sounds using all these different textures, and each one will lend its unique character to the sound.
Interesting. So are you thinking that this is going to be applicable in the real world, or are you thinking more virtual reality scapes, or tell me a little bit about what you imagine, where this might take you.
So a couple of ideas about what we might use Sound of Touch for. One is for musical performance. You know, a big part of musical performance is to create sounds on the fly, create new sounds, new interesting combinations of existing sounds. And so as a performance tool, this installation is like a palette of textures that a performer could use to scrape and strike and brush and do all these different manipulations with a digital sound sample in order to sculpt it to fit some larger piece of music, or even just to create an improvised piece with all these textures and sounds on the fly. Another idea that we've been talking about is that so Foley artists, the people that make the sound effects for movies, typically tend to use a lot of physical objects to make their sounds, because they find that it's easier to use a physical object than to take a pre-recorded digital sample and try to sculpt it to match what's happening on the screen. So one idea for this tool is that since it's a tool that allows you to sculpt a digital sound in order to match whatever you want, it's something that Foley artists can use their big library of digital sound samples, but be able to sculpt them in a way that matches what they're trying to achieve on screen.
Yeah.
Or just for the everyday person who might want to make sound effects for their home movies, or just play with sound in a very kind of synesthetic way, where your experience with texture and sound kind of blend together.
Oh, I can see it as a teaching tool. I can see it on the internet as a collaborative musical experience. You just do it with the things that you have in your environment.
Right.
Yeah.
We had one guy come up to us yesterday who said he would like to try putting this sensor on a surgeon's knife, so that as the surgeon cut into a person, he could hear the different layers he was cutting through. So
wow,
that might be
cool.
a possible future use as well.
I like it. So where did this idea come from for you guys? Was this a in the shower idea, or, you know, as you're tripping over things? Any interesting stories that you have about that?
We have a friend, Roberto Aimi, who just finished his PhD at the Media Lab, and his PhD was all about what he called semi-acoustic percussion instruments. So he built a series of drums and cymbals that operated with the same basic underlying technology, where a digital sound sample is loaded in, and then those objects become an interface to manipulate that sample. So he would build, for instance, a drum that had a sensor attached to the membrane, and as you played that drum, you would be playing that digital sound, not the resonance of the drum itself. But it lets you play the sound in a familiar way, using this object that you already have a lot of experience with and expectations about. So Hayes and I really liked how flexible this interface was and decided, why don't we think about taking this interface for manipulating percussion sounds and generalize it, and make it so that you can use any sound with it and any texture. So in one of our installations here, we have preloaded sounds. Some of them are percussion sounds, and you can explore those. On the other one, you can record your own sound into the tool. So you can record your voice saying a word or doing a musical phrase or whistling or whatever you want, and that sound becomes the sound that you can digitally manipulate.
Very cool.